one of the biggest responses that we've gotten on a podcast so far has been this Galaxy Brain episode that we did around this concept of brand camp, where the basic idea of it was like, how do you take people that are trying to grow within the outdoor industry and give them the resources to get better at their jobs? And I, at the time, felt like, oh, we did something very similar to this at Red Bull with the athletes that we worked with everything that we were doing to try to like help everybody take a step up. And we actually worked with a guy by the name of Andy Walsh, who did this program called Glimpses, which was sort of like this human performance thing where it was all these little things that you could do to get better and perform at your highest level.
Right.
And the Futurist Project is basically that, exactly like what we're talking about here. This is a way for people to come in, get mentored, have like a huge boost to their career, and get things kicked off. So, we've got so much to talk about on the pod today. This is going to be a really fun one. So, Sablle and Vince, thank you for being here. And I think just to start it off and kind of set the tone for everybody, can you just give our audience just rundown of what is the Futurist Project all about?
So, Sablle here, co-founder of the Futurist Project. But we, the Futurist Project is a leadership academy, kind of geared towards folks in outdoor, bike, run, adjacent industries. It's a 6-month program. It spans all sorts of different topics, but primarily, leadership skills. We talk about DEI, advocacy, sustainability, some of the things that are topics within these industries as well, not just leadership stuff. And the first part of the program is content-based. You learn from industry experts as well as, we try to bring in folks from outside the industry as well, just because we want to expand the mindset. The industry is a small place. And then, so that's the first 3 months. And then the second 3 months, we actually have them partner with nonprofits in the industry space, and they do capstone projects before graduations where they help solve a problem for a nonprofit. And then Vince knows a lot about this, but a big part of the program too is 6 months of mentorship. So we pair them with a mentor as well. So that's kind of the elevator pitch on what the Futurist Project is about.
Not to bury the lead or anything at all, the application window for this next cohort is now live and going until January. Sorry.
Yeah, end of January. Yep.
So you got a little time to kind of decide who made the cut. It's a group of about 30 to 35 people, if I'm
30 to 35 people. Kicks off in April next year. So yeah, looking for some quality applicants this year and some really good mentors too.
I actually had not heard of it prior to our introduction, and now that I've heard of it, I'm so excited about it. And I think also just like teeing up not only people that would apply, but also there's probably a handful of mentors in the Second Nature community as well that could make a pretty big difference. That both of you have actually gone through the course as sort of people taking it as well. So not only are you sort of running the show now, what was your experience like going into the Futurist Project back in the day? You're both part of the same class, right?
So Sablle and I both went through, we were in class 3. It was in 2017, 2018. And we, I think to add just a little color commentary to how Sablle kind of described the flow of the program, I think from my perspective, my learning, and I've said this to one of the founders, Stasia, since I've said, the curriculum you've built is actually, it's kind of sneaky. You go into it. At the time, it was actually under the name, the Skip Yowell Future Leadership Academy. And it was a program under the umbrella of the Outdoor Industry Association. And you go into it thinking, you're getting leadership skills and you're not quite sure what that means, whether it's going to be like, how to build a team and how to lead a meeting or whatever it may be, or the seven highly effective habits of, highly, I botched that one. But anyways, you know what I'm saying. But you go into it thinking that, and that 3 months of curriculum, you go through these different modules, and each module, some of it may be a little bit about leadership skills, some of it may be more about doing a little like self-awareness digging as to finding kind of what your fire is and what is your spark, what is that thing you get out of bed for every day. And then other parts are just issues facing our industry. And by the end of it, you realize that the goal of this isn't just to create like highly effective, very high performing leaders. It's to create this collective of leaders across the industry who frankly care about the health and the state of the industry and where the industry is going as a whole. And so to me, that was probably the biggest takeaway. And going back to, that was my experience coming out of it. And just to note, like how Sablle and I met, and this ties to the curriculum, is each module you kind of, you read papers and you listen to some podcasts and you go through some sort of curriculum where you have a presenter kind of present on an issue or a topic in the industry. And then you have to connect with someone else in the class or in the cohort for a quick conversation about kind of your take on what's going on. And throughout the course, you have to do that with everyone else in the class. So you're having one-on-one discussions with people from the cohort, and you can't just kind of keep talking to your same buddy over and over again. You get to mix and mingle with everyone in the cohort. And what's cool about that is everyone in the cohort, not everyone, but a portion of them are going to be, if you work at a brand, they're going to be working at competitor companies or things like that. And at the time, Sablle and I worked for competitive companies, and she was, I think, the first conversation I had to have during the cohort. And so we got on the call and just hit it off, and it was one of my favorite things about the whole program is you leave with 35 best friends across the industry. You can call for anything you need, and Sabble's 100% one of those. But that's part of it, and you kind of learn. I think that instills in you this idea that we say some hate the word, some love the word, but we talk about co-opetition and the idea that if we are creating leaders in the industry who care about the state of the industry, we all work for different brands. Some may be competing, but there are a lot of issues that we can and should work on together. And that's kind of the values that the program instills in you.
Absolutely. I love the idea of cross-pollination. I feel like, you talked about the mentors that you brought in, but also how, everybody's sort of required to also work with a nonprofit toward the end of their project. And I think that's really important too, because not only are you cross-pollinating to get the attendees a lot of additional access to these, people that are thinking about stuff, but the downstream effect of what these nonprofits probably benefit from, not only the time and energy from that person working with them, but what they probably learn working with the outdoor leader as a result of that. And I've got to imagine the impact goes well beyond those 30 to 35 people and even the companies they work for. You get another 30, groups that are also benefiting tremendously from.
Yeah, and one note on that is that it's actually, so the way that those capstones work is they take that group of 30 or 35, however big the cohort is, we break it down into smaller groups of 5 or so, 4 to 5, that are working with a nonprofit. So essentially they're getting this little mind trust that are, collectively working on the problem. And so, and the goal there again is to put, we'll have a group within a cohort of folks from brands, from retail, from finance, from HR, from marketing, and all kind of working on this problem together. And so yeah, from a nonprofit perspective, they're getting some really bright minds collectively working on some of their biggest challenges. And at the end of the day, they have a pitch off at the end for graduation, and they all kind of present their programs, and they kind of, there's a little bit of some scoring systems, and there's a winner at the end. But ultimately, the nonprofit should be the winner, because what they get handed at the end should be an action plan that they can kind of adopt and execute on.
This really isn't just like a sales and marketing cool kids club. There's like finance, HR, all kinds of people from every different element of the outdoor industry that are coming in to develop their skills and hone their skills and connect with other people.
Yeah, nonprofits, entrepreneurs, people of different ages, backgrounds, ethnicities, you name it. It's a part of the program, and we want to make sure, to Vince's point, like the more you can have a mind share of people from different perspectives, you can have and create more meaningful conversations and move the industry forward together, right? That was kind of the goal, to Vince's point about how it originally started. It's getting people in the same room that, it's not your family, it's not your friends, it's not your boss, your coworkers. It's really people from different backgrounds that can kind of come together to have those conversations. And the nonprofit work, a lot of those nonprofits have taken those projects and put it to really amazing use. We have some really cool stories of how that work's been utilized, and kind of passing that knowledge down has been really cool to see.
Do you have any just stories at the top of mind that have come from the project that you want to share?
So a few years ago, this was kind of the first year the Futurist Project worked with, in our new iteration, worked with the Great Basin National Park Foundation. And they created a donor strategy for Great Basin National Park and their foundation, not the national park itself. And what ended up happening is the group that worked on this project ended up being a part of their board moving forward. And so post-program, they stayed on the board and worked with them to help launch this new donor strategy, which was really exciting, really cool to see. And that's just one example of how this work gets utilized.
Wow.
But we have tons of those every year, spanning different organizations, getting youth outside, or Runners for Public Lands was one last year. It kind of spans the entire, all different industries too, and different nonprofits doing various things, which is pretty amazing.
I've seen some, I know from my capstone group, I know one of the guys ended up going on to being a board member with the nonprofit. And so it's also a way for them to network. I mean, I work at Osprey, and we're working with, now we have a formal partnership in place with the group I did a capstone project on, and we've been sponsoring them ever since. And so there's also kind of above and beyond the capstone, there's just these really nice natural organic connections that happen for the brands and the nonprofits.
This seems so cool. I mean, I was already really excited to have this conversation, but now you start connecting the dots of not only are you going to learn more stuff that's going to make you better at whatever job you're doing, you're also going to connect with a lot of people. You're also going to get some experience that's maybe adjacent to what you would be doing anyway, and all the relationships that come not only through the cohort, but through the capstone project as well. There's so many connection points that could kind of kickstart just about anybody's career if they're involved in this process.
And you get to work with people who, we, just like any other kind of leadership program doing personality tests, like you get paired with people who think differently and work differently than you. So as an example, I'm in sales. I'm very outgoing. I'm very talkative. I want to make a decision and move on. And then in my group, we had a lawyer. Shout out to Andrew at Perkins Coie, but he's a lawyer for outdoor brands, and he's very organized, very thoughtful. Lawyers want to read every word and disseminate what every sentence means. And we had to learn how to, keep the project moving forward and work together, which was definitely a unique experience for me at the time in my career, and learning how to work with somebody who, isn't in sales or marketing, and dives maybe a bit deeper than some of us do.
That's like cross-functional 101, right? Like that's the thing that really makes it pop when you're working at a brand, is being able to reach into finance, HR, production, whatever, and develop more of a well-rounded approach to something that actually checks more than your own box.
Absolutely.
There's lots of skills to be developed in this time. How do you think about developing the curriculum? Because I've got to imagine that it changes over time, but also for each cohort, you probably have different goals, different speakers, different mentors that are coming in that can provide a little something else. What is sort of the mindset that goes into building each one of these individual curriculums?
Yeah, and Vince, feel free to jump in, but we definitely don't want to fix a wheel that's not broken, right? There's certain things that are going to be staples every year in the program. But one thing, when we kicked off the Futurist Project, it was, we want to modernize the content. Something's changing every year, right? A hot topic this year was PFAS, forever chemicals, right, for the entire industry. So having a conversation during the sustainability module around that, and making sure that we're always trying new speakers, bringing in new content that's relevant to what's going on in the industry today is important to us, while still, maintaining the pillars that we have within the program. But a big part of it too is, some people are visual learners, some people want to have conversations about it. So we try to make sure in every module, Vince kind of talked about it, but you read things, you listen to things, you have conversations about it, you write about it. We try to kind of hit everything. So you can also tap into different learning styles too. But definitely modernizing content is important to us and not just doing the same thing year after year. And sometimes you try things and maybe it's not as engaging to some as it is to others, So that's definitely important to us, though, is making sure it's modernized to where we're at.
Yeah, and I think the other piece on that is just feedback. Like the cohort has not shy to give feedback on,
No.
how it went for them and what topics they wanted to sink their teeth into more. And the reality is, and you're running through modules or the curriculum itself over a 3-month program, and you're really not going super deep. You're giving kind of like fairly, surface level, like here's some of the issues, here's some of the talking points, here's some of the things that we should talk through as part of these issues or topics in the industry. But we're not able to go super deep on any of them, and there's always people who have, one person really wanted to go much deeper on one specific topic, and someone else is like, yeah, that one I didn't relate to that one. But getting that feedback and constantly tweaking the curriculum to for the next class is part of it.
I want to get down to the nuts and bolts of the actual academy itself. Is this all online? Is it all in person? Is there like a little bit of this?
Yeah, it's 6 months total. So you kick off the program in person. It's an overnight. It's only one night because I asked Stacia, the original founder, I'm like, why wouldn't we make this longer? But you want to leave people wanting more, right? So you have that 24 hours. It's fast and furious. And then you go into virtual content and modules for 3 months. And then midway through the program, we have a 3-day retreat at a really amazing property that is very outdoor industry related. That's kind of a surprise every year. And then they get to really have 3 full days with no internet, no Wi-Fi, you're not working. And they immerse themselves into getting into these capstones, more speakers, diving deeper into some of the topics we already covered. But that in-person aspect is, I'd say, when we kind of survey everybody, what's your favorite part of the program? It's always that in-person conversation, like getting deeper with each other. And we make sure that's a really important piece of the program. And then in the end, we also have graduation at the end of the experience where they present their capstones in person as well.
That last one is like a 3 or 4 day intensive, and then it ends in the graduation with the final pitches and stuff.
Yep. Exactly.
Vince, I know you've been, your one of your roles is actually developing and recruiting mentors. And before we started the pod, I volunteered a bunch of people to do it for future ones. But talk to me a little bit about these mentors, and are they also speakers, or do you kind of have like a separation between those two? How do the mentors kind of come into the Futurist Project?
Well, one, we know some folks in your audience would make great mentors. So hit me up, find me on LinkedIn, reach out. We'd love to talk to you about it. So myself, Katie Hawkins, and some others in the past have done a lot of work to kind of build the mentor program over the years. We start basically now working on recruiting a pool of mentors. And again, we try to make that a diverse group. I try to recruit more mentors than we're going to need for a class, because ultimately what we want to do is pair, make the best pairings possible. So once we get the actual final kind of cohort list, we go through and look at what's their role. They also fill out a survey talking about what they're looking for in mentorship, what kind of guidance they're looking for, whether it's, I'm new to a management role and I'm trying to figure out how to build a team, or I'm trying to, whatever it may be. And then we basically look at the background of all of our mentors and try to do the best job pairing possible. And so, we start that process now. I mean, we have a really rich group of mentors who have been doing it year after year, and we're so grateful for, the volunteer work that they've put into it. I will say that the commitment for mentors is basically to meet with your mentee every other week, at least. It's kind of more at most. We try not to necessarily commit our mentors to weekly meetings, but every other week they try to meet with the mentees. And it's on the mentees to come ready and prepared with an agenda of what they want to talk about. That's not for the mentors to drive the conversations. They're there to be a resource and kind of help guide and steer to some degree. But that's, we look for mentors who share the values of the futurists, which is they're folks who, you know, work in or kind of adjacent to the industry, who do care deeply about the future of it and the types of leaders that are being fostered, you know, through the program. And you know, it's been one thing I'd say again, our mentor pool that we've had have been incredible, and the feedback that we've received. I mean, we haven't really had any of that. The mentees like, I just can't connect with my mentor, you know, and we expect it. Like we expect for that to happen. We can't nail everything. We've had cases where, you know, mentees would reach out and say, hey, my mentor is great, but I also need someone who has, just making something up, like entrepreneurial experience, and we can like tap another mentor from the pool, or somebody who maybe didn't get paired, to come in on like a monthly basis and meet with them as well, so we can kind of like augment based on what their needs are.
Just thinking about the mentors and the value that they have, and the fact that you've got like backup mentors ready to rip at any given time. I mean, this seems like something that, you know, on its own would be super valuable to the industry to have like unlimited access to, you know, like even when the cohort isn't going, when the classes are out, to be able to tap into that network. I mean, that's yeah, it seems like the overall vision of what you're doing is really just helping everybody level up across the board. And I think there's something to be said for being on the mentorship side of, you know, being exposed to new thoughts, new approaches to stuff, and making connections with people who are up and coming, and trying to help, you know, also plug them into the right places, but also challenging the way that you think about stuff. So
Yeah.
have you done any mentorship on your side? I mean, obviously you're recruiting mentors, but you two would also be insane mentors to have for just about anybody. Have you taken any of that on yet?
Yeah.
Sable's too busy running the program, so but yeah, I've been fortunate to serve as a mentor for the last 3 or 4 classes, and I'd say the number one feedback we get from mentors is that they're learning just as much, and it is so helpful for them to be connected, you know, with to be connected with kind of up and coming, you know, leaders in the industry, and to be connected with in a what we kind of say the benefit is, it's a non-management kind of relationship. You don't work at the same company. They don't report to you. You don't, you know, you're not giving their performance reviews. You're not calling their manager telling them that they need a promotion because of how bad they are. But you do get to, you learn a lot, and you can have a much more open conversation with them probably than you can with even your own kind of team, right? In some degrees. I mean, obviously, hopefully you have an open dialogue with your team, but it's just a different relationship, and you can learn so much from them. And that's the number one feedback we get from our mentors.
Yeah, that's and they cool. Also coined the term. We're just going to keep going with our Futurist Project buzzwords here, but one of our mentors coined the term menternship, because they feel like an intern, that learning from the mentees themselves. And on these calls where the mentors get to network and talk and have meaningful conversations too, they talk a lot about how much they learn from their mentee and how they get to pay it forward, but little do their mentees know that they're learning a ton from them too. So that's really always fun to hear. And the mentors get a lot out of it with the network too. You know, they were the ones that we started a mentor summit now, where they get to meet their mentees at the kickoff, and they also spend a day with each other to network and get to know other mentors. So it becomes a network for them too. And that's something they asked for that we ended up moving forward and doing. So it's kind of a cool part of it as well.
That is a really cool benefit for the mentors. There's something that I learned through my process as an online educator through the whole bike industry, and it was that if you want to truly master any skill, you should try to teach it. And I think that's exactly what you're saying with the mentors, that they're picking up a lot of new stuff, but also it sort of crystallizes how you explain that to someone, how to do X, Y, or Z, of like, if I can explain it to you, then I definitely have it mastered. If I can't, then I need to, you know, think a little bit harder about it, right?
Yeah.
And it reminds me of what you said at your experience at Red Bull, where when you were managing the athletes, you wanted to try all of the sports. That sounds like a lot. I'm sure you were doing some crazy things, but similar, right? You want to kind of put yourself in their shoes and learn and try new things from them too.
You know, we get in these roles on the mentorship side where we know the stuff that we were good at, and we focus in on that stuff. And somebody comes along that has a completely different skill set, and you see the value in that, and you say, oh, I want to learn more about this. This is something that might actually be a really good arrow in the quiver to pick up on. I feel like I'm constantly in a state of like test and learn, and just trying to pick up everything I possibly can. So there's so much value in being a mentor, and I've already volunteered all of the people in our Slack channel for it, so you should be inundated.
We might volunteer you as well, just so you know.
Well, one of the other things I want to ask you more about the the brand or the product itself, you have partners like REI, obviously Osprey, like I think your director of marketing is probably relatively engaged with the whole thing. But what does that look like? Like what, Vince, maybe you could speak to it, because you're obviously super involved with Osprey and this project. What does the partnership from the sponsorship, the sponsor that you do work with, what does that actually look like? How does that manifest?
Yeah, I mean, it varies by brand, so I could probably really only speak for Osprey. I'm kind of I'm the third. I mean, there was somebody at Osprey who went through classes 1 and 2, and I'm the third. And ever since I've seen it as my role to make sure there's always somebody from Osprey in the class. And both as somebody who's a manager in the company who's trying to grow and foster and develop, a team and or just the company as a whole. And some of it may be selfish in that, like, I went through the program and I've drank the Kool-Aid and I am a firm believer in it. I think it's just done, I just believe in it, and so to me, and I haven't sent anyone through the program at Osprey who hasn't come back with their minds blown. And so that's part of it. Part of it is like, it is a way that, one thing about Osprey that's unique is we're based in Cortez, Colorado. We're in a very remote location. There's not a lot of cross-pollination. We don't live in like a Boulder or a Portland, where there can be organic cross-pollination with other brands and a lot of that kind of networking happening. And so these are just great opportunities for development for our team, who's based in a very rural part of the country. And from a commitment standpoint, we cover it. We pay for somebody to go through the program. We also pretty frequently sponsor, 1 or 2 of the presenters who are going to be coming in at like the overnight or something like that. So we're involved both, financially, as well as making sure they have the time and space they need to go through the program.
This program is just, like I said, I'm so excited about this because I feel like this is something that the outdoor industry needs, and the ability to have these kind of conversations, to level up, to get access to mentors, to get access to sort of a fresh way of thinking. Is there something that, maybe both of you could answer this one, but just what do you think the outdoor industry needs right now?
I feel like I've said the same thing for years, so maybe it's not right now. I feel like the outdoor industry is always behind from a technology perspective, from a modernizing things. We'll probably be last to use AI as an example. If we do, it's going to be one of the big companies. But I think the outdoor industry needs to start getting ahead of things a bit more, just getting in front of these big new ideas in the world and leveraging some of the technology and things that are out there. That's a big one for me. That's why we try to modernize our content and talk about certain things, so we can hopefully empower the cohort members to bring that back to their organizations. But I think the industry as a whole, we're always a little bit behind. So I hope that we can continue, with the podcast, with news, having these conversations that you're having with various people on yours, but just continuing to move the industry forward together, I think is really important.
I'm going to balance that out with a little bit of kind of grassroots, in a sense that, I 100% agree with everything Sablle said. And, I think, but also, as I look at my team and the folks that are coming up in the industry, I do, this is not to get into a whole trade show conversation, because I think we're all struggling with what is that proper gathering point. But I will say, I'll never forget my first, I joined this industry almost 18 years ago, went to my first outdoor retailer and was like, holy smokes, I found my people. Like, these are people who understand they are passionate about what they do. None of us are going to get rich doing it, but we believe in what we're doing, and we also believe in work hard, play hard, burn the candle at both ends, whatever we got to do, and get the job done. And so I think, to me, when I look at some of my team, and I see like, the fact that we don't have a lot of many of these gathering points where they can go and just kind of like just feed off of that energy that this industry can and does and should have. I'm a big kind of grassroots, boots on the ground, get people out there and network and feed off each other. And that's where you get a lot of good ideas. And I think that, to some degree, I don't know what the answer is, because I think there's a lot of competing interests trying to come up with the answer. But I think, there's something like that. It benefited me greatly, and it gave me a passion for being in the industry. And I'd love to kind of instill that fire in my team.
Just having the opportunity to make the connections, to have a place where you can meet other people, it just becomes this sort of flywheel for development within the industry, for pulling more people into the industry, for becoming passionate about the industry that you're in. There's so many things that come out of that besides just, getting to do some work together.
Yeah.
Just the ancillary benefits that come with that gathering make all the difference in the world. And it's so crazy to see what could come out of there that you wouldn't probably have ever expected.
I mean, this program came from, in probably 2013 and 2014, there was a gathering called, I think it was called the Futurist Gathering, and it was a private, not kind of private event, but they would basically invite mid-level managers to come to this happy hour, and they'd sit everyone down on a table. And I remember going to one, and they would put some questions or some things on the table, and you had to kind of open it. And then all of a sudden you're in this little group of people, and you have to talk about some issue. And it was just, again, that idea of kind of this mind share and get people thinking critically about things that are happening. And that's how this whole program started, was, outdoor retailer, and somebody had an idea to try to pull people together across the industry to start talking about some of the challenges.
In a small way, we've done something very similar with the Second Nature Slack channel. This podcast is all about getting people talking about the business of the outdoor industry and sort of sharing some of the behind the scenes, the X's and O's, giving people resources, and also just, inspiring people to think a little bit differently about that stuff. Dylan and I both come back from some interesting backgrounds that are maybe non-traditional for a lot of people, but also like bringing people in. I mean, one of our podcasts we did was from, the previous head of gaming for Red Bull. And what does that guy know about the outdoor industry? Actually, a lot of the lessons he had to offer would help take things a step forward.
Yeah.
It's actually from Colorado. So if you need a Colorado speaker that's not in the outdoor industry, Travis Wanlin would be a good one. But yeah, that's it. Like trying to find people who can offer something up to the community that may not actually be part of it. There's so much value there. But then also, our Slack channel is almost 500 strong at this point, and the connections that I keep hearing about, you don't see it on the discussion tab, but then somebody will message me like, I just had like the craziest DM connection, and then the two of us are going to go off and do this thing. And it's like, who knows? Like, maybe the podcast wasn't the biggest contribution, but the Slack channel was in the end. I don't know.
Yeah.
Giving people that opportunity to connect. It is, to Vince's point, it's tough right now. There's gatherings for sales. I get out all the time to trade shows. There's gatherings for media. There's gatherings for some marketing folks, but there's not one where everyone can come together right now. So there's a few that are starting, which, again, to Vince's point, we won't get into that, but I'm hopeful that it creates a space that people can do that again. But we do that if you join the cohort. But outside of that, it's a little bit more siloed,
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I want to talk about the cohort specifically. I know we've sort of kind of we talked a little bit about the application process. We've talked about kind of who it's for, but I really want to nail down that there is an application process for people to get into the next class, which goes until the end of January. And then you'll make the decision over the next couple months of who's going to be in it. And then this thing kicks off, which is super exciting. What can these people who are applying, like, what can they expect through? What does the application process actually look like? What's that all about?
First, it's a written application. And For Second Nature listeners, we are going to give them a bypass for the application fee. So we'll plug you to put that in the show notes, Aaron. But that's exciting. Hopefully we get some people who are listening applying to the program. But it starts off with a written application. That's kind of the first process that you can go into on our website. After applications close, we obviously have a process on and kind of a rating system on how that goes from a written standpoint. If you make it to the next one, you'll get an email, and then we have a video interview question that gets even deeper into questions we have. We're obviously looking for diversity in thought, ideas, how people think, kind of their attitudes. There's all sorts of things that we kind of look for in our rubric, but diversity of thought is really important for us. And then from the video applications, we start making decisions on who is going to be in that final cohort based on, it's all anonymous. So we don't put names to anything. And there's a few of us doing it. So if you know somebody who's applying, like we don't know, obviously after video, you kind of get to know them, but written, it's all anonymous and rating them. So from there, we get everyone who we decide to be in the cohort. And then if there's any last minute too close to call, we schedule kind of 30-minute personal interviews. It's been a while since we've had to do that, but we kind of make that the last resort if it comes down to a few last people. But yeah, it's definitely a process, right? You're applying for something that is going to be 6 months of your life. So we want them to take it seriously, spend some time on it. And put some effort into it. So we make sure we have that in the application process.
So in the video part of the application, they get like a prompt and then they record a video of themselves answering that question in detail. Is that right?
Correct. Yep. So it's online. We use a platform where, you only have X amount of time. You get a couple tries to do it. So you can't Google, I need an idea for this or what should I say to this? You have to think on the spot, think on your feet, which is important. It's important to us that they're not coming up with these cookie cutter answers that they think we want to hear. We want to know really what they think.
Yeah, it's authentic, right? It's not the right answer necessarily, but you get a better sense of how they think about dealing with a problem and then how their approach to problem solving might fit into the rest of the cohort. Is that more accurate?
Absolutely. Yeah.
Cool. I got this.
Yeah, you're getting a whole crash course. I feel like you understand very well.
And probably in the written, you could somehow work in that you're a Second Nature listener. That would be a high signal that you're engaged in the outdoor industry. That's super generous too. We'll put a link in both the show notes and we'll also put it in the Slack channel. I mean, I can imagine almost all of our audience would want to be a part of something like this. Just seems like such a great opportunity to continue kind of taking things to the next level. Have you seen anything interesting that people have come through with? I mean, from the application process, has anything ever really surprised you, or is it pretty straightforward? I mean, curious what the experience is like having to sift through. I've got to imagine a mountain of.
I always find what's most interesting is like where people's backgrounds, where they're coming from, and why they're applying. I think everyone kind of has their own reason, but because it's again, my day-to-day job, I'm in sales at Mountain Hardware, and so I'm always in this lane. And so with Futurist Project, when you read these applications, you hear from people from all over the industry. And the reason for them wanting to join the program is always different to them specifically, their background, their personal life, where they're at. So I wouldn't say it's surprising. I'd say it's most fun when listening and reading these applications, like their why of joining it and where they come from. We've had some really amazing entrepreneurs even where, I wasn't familiar with their business before and what they were starting. And now I've gone on to see them do amazing things afterwards, after the program. Not because of the program, they're amazing on their own, but yeah, you just get really, really amazing people and that diversity of thought. It's cool to read. It's fun. It is a lot. There's a few of us that read the applications anonymously on purpose, but
how do you think about adjacent industries? Because just like we cross-pollinate and we try to reach out, there's got to be some people that are interested that might not be. I mean, whether they're either in a job or in a job at a company that's not in the outdoor industry, how do you think about that when it comes time to look at that? I know they're anonymous, but if their background maybe doesn't match up to sort of what your expectation is, how do you deal with that?
We have, I feel like over the years, I think since we went through it, it was predominantly almost all outdoor. I think even just looking at the recent, uh, running event, or I can't go anywhere. I went to Western States this year just for fun, and there was like probably five
Amazing.
people there who were either in the program or who had gone through it, all from the running industry. And I think that's a testament to, even though like run is tied to outdoor, but I think it's kind of still adjacent enough that I was actually really kind of pleasantly surprised that there was like a whole group, and everywhere you go, there's a group of futurists taking a photo together because they're all futurist grads. And but you see the same starting to happen in the bike industry.
The new iteration, Futurist as it stands today, it's definitely attracted people from even more diverse backgrounds and spaces in the industry. So I said, like, we had our first entrepreneurs in the program. And then when an applicant came through, again, it was anonymous, but you can hear what they do, obviously, through, the video application such. And we had a woman come through that worked for a beauty brand in the industry. And it's Kinfield, which was a new startup. And we love her. Her name's Renee. She's amazing in the program. But when that came through, we were like, beauty and the outdoor, run space. It was unique, but we want that. We want people to apply that are a little bit more outside the box, right? We have a mentor that works for Rivian as an example. Rivian does a lot with Conservation Alliance. I know Vince has done stuff with Osprey with Rivian. It's not necessarily, a brand that you would think of when you think of outdoor run bike. But they do a lot kind of in that space and support a lot of, nonprofits in that space. So we're also trying to get people to think outside the box when they're like, is this right for me? Should I apply? We love that kind of diverse background, different brands, different roles. Yeah, it's important to us. That's how you get these meaningful conversations, right?
Do you have any major success stories of people that, sort of were unknowns on the way in and then now fast forward?
Constantly we see of people getting promotions or jumping to a different role or doing amazing things. I'd say one that I would like to highlight, I was thinking about this before. I'm like, who's just somebody that I think is quite doing amazing things right now? I wouldn't say it's because of the Futurist Project necessarily. I think she got a lot from the program and it expanded her mind on the brand side, but her name's Kanoa. She went through the program a few years ago. She owns her own company called Nakoa Adventures. Sorry if I mispronounce that. I think it's Nakoa. But she puts on retreats for body positive retreats across the world. And when she joined the program, was kind of dipping her toes into it, doing a lot with it. But this past year, just watching her on social media, her business absolutely blossom. And she put on, I don't know how many, I don't want to misspeak, but more than a few. She did, I want to say like 6, something crazy, where she was all over the world putting on these body positive retreats in Costa Rica, somewhere in the US, different places abroad. I think she did Switzerland. Again, I don't want to misspeak, but she's gone to these amazing places, and just seeing how her business has blossomed and transformed and just following along her journey, it's just like so inspiring to watch. And I know that what she got out of the program was meeting individuals that were, more cookie cutter outdoor, like somebody like myself or Vince that worked for Osprey or Mountain Hardwear, right? That's kind of what somebody might think of. But I know she learned a lot in these different roles, but watching her just absolutely thrive has been amazing to see. And you have that all over the place where you see them jump to a new career, start something on their own, go into coaching, grow within their company. There's some really cool success stories, but she really stands out as a recent and doing some really cool stuff.
I think even
That's
in
really
our
cool.
class, if I'm not mistaken, in our class alone, it was like a 50% rate of people getting promotions during the actual during the cohort itself, these are people who were, mentors were coaching them into how to have these conversations and how to negotiate promotions and things like that. And there, quite a few people within our class alone during the course of the class, got promotions. And even the small wins. I mean, I just this last class, like they just graduated in October, and before the capstone presentations, we had a call with some of the mentees, just kind of as a group of mentors, just kind of coaching them through prepping for the presentations. And I mean, there was one that was like, I'm not presenting. I'm terrified of presenting. I'm not going to present. And I think we all encouraged her enough, and to where, she stepped up and rocked it in the presentation. And to that, like, that's not someone, we're calling out here as somebody who's like going on to being the VP of sales at Mountain Hardware, like Sablle, the rock star, has gone on to do. But, that win was massive at that moment. And just that growth alone is so cool to see.
Yeah, that's a really interesting stat, just the amount of promotions that came through for the people. But I also feel like, if you're investing in yourself to go to the Futurist Project, that is a signal to your employer,
100%.
like, hey, I'm trying to be like the best possible, in my role, and I'm trying to expand beyond, and I'm not just here to, stay in this role and not do anything. I'm grinding here, like I'm trying to come up. And I think that's a really big statement for anybody to come in. I also think like this environment that you've created here, if they blew it in the presentation, it's not like they're going to get fired from their job, so it's a really friendly environment for them to like test and learn and grow, which is pretty convenient too. I've been in the high stakes business planning stuff where, failure is not an option, but this one, not that failure is necessarily an option, but like the stakes aren't,
it's peers.
It's not your job if things don't go as planned. It's a pretty friendly environment that's there to help you and encourage you and help you get better, right? It's meant to push you into those opportunities, but also to help you improve. So I think that's really cool.
Yeah, exactly.
One of the things that I think about with the, the constant, like, okay, you're focused in on this class and developing the mentors and, then the next class after that and the application process, I'm sure you can get kind of into the mode of just focusing on the next one. But I'd be curious to know how you think about the future of the Futurist Project. What does that look like in 5 years and 10 years? Like where do you want this project to go? Obviously you're doing a lot year in and year out, but is there more room to grow with it?
Yeah, it reminds me of that episode that you're talking about, Brand Camp, with Second Nature, and between you and Dylan, like everything you kind of had your toes in and everything you had going on, like where do we want to go from here? I think we know. So Stacia and then Carrie Watson are my other co-founders, and we're very proud of where we've made it. We all have full-time jobs. We don't pay ourselves. We've made it this far because of people like Vince and our alumni who have given their time and their effort, because everybody who went through the program got something out of it and believes in it. And so that's why we've made it this far. The future of the Futurist Project, we want to be known as kind of like this leadership house in the industry, and an organization that, again, is helping people move forward. And so you'll see a few things from us, hopefully in the next year or two, on more virtual offerings. There's some gaps in the industry on organizations where they used to do a few things, and we keep getting reached out to do, maybe just mentorship, right? There's people who are like, hey, I can't commit, this time to the entire Leadership Academy. What if I'm just interested in mentorship? Or, we have 3 female co-founders, and we know Carrie Watson owns a very successful business. I'm on the brand side, and then Stacia has a great amount of experience as well. Like, could we put together something for women specifically? So we have some things up our sleeve, but we definitely want to expand, continue to grow our network, and be a greater force, I think, as the Futurist Project within the industry, and continue to build upon this community that we feel so special to be a part of and help kind of build already. And we have 250 plus alumni. So we have a lot of ideas. I know, just like Second Nature, your Brand Camp idea, you guys come up with all sorts of them in your podcast, but we just need to kind of hone in on what we have time for, since we all have full-time jobs on the side, which are
Yeah.
very important.
Yeah, the galaxy brain never stops, right? Like I've got more ideas than I have time
Yeah.
at this stage. But
Correct.
I mean,
Yes,
the
constant.
mentors and alumni that you have, I mean, just incredible people who, yeah, there's a lot of value there that people are looking to access, and to make that available would be, people,
Yeah.
everyone's looking for that, right? Like that's the big reason why Futurist Project probably exists, is that people are looking for mentors and education, and looking for ways to get better at what they do. And this is such a great pathway for that. So I'm super excited just for what you're all doing. And yeah, we'll put the link
Thank
in the
you.
show notes for applications, which are open until the end of January. This will go live well before then. So hopefully you get a big rush of people referencing how they heard all about it on Second Nature.
Yeah.
I'll let you know. Yeah, now that we are going to help waive the application fee for listeners, we'll know who applies or
Cool.
who reaches out to be a mentor. And then nobody else mentioned this, so I'll just put a quick plug. We're always looking for sponsors, and that's how those monetary benefits are how we keep the program running, how we can pay for scholarships for participants who are maybe a journalist who don't work for an organization, they're freelance, nonprofit, retail staff members. So if we didn't have those brand sponsors, we wouldn't be able to put certain people who can't afford the program through it. So if anybody's also interested in partnering with us on that, we love sponsorship dollars to get some more meaningful people in the program who might not otherwise be able to do it.
Yeah, I think if you're a listener and you're in HR and you're thinking about career development opportunities for staff and how to build that, I think this is a plug and play kind of resource that is perfect for that.
Amazing. Well, thank you so much for the time today. This is so fun, and I'm so excited to hear how this next cohort goes. I'm sure there's going to be a couple Second Nature listeners in there, and
yeah, hopefully. And
exciting times.
We'll be reaching out to you to be a mentor and be involved in some capacity. So I know you have enough going on, but we'll be tapping you as well.
I'm in.